Doc, excuse me. Dr. Cynthia Shaw is a New York-based licensed clinical psychologist and has a group practice and owner of Authentically Living Psychological Services. She works with adolescents and adults struggling with low self-esteem, grief, trauma, and relationship difficulties. First of all, congratulations for having your article published in Authority magazine titled Five Effective Strategies for Mental Well-Being. And thank you for being here with me today.
Oh, thank you so much, Nancy. That was a great introduction. I'm excited to chat with you a little bit more today.
What attracted you to a career as a psychologist?
That's a good question. It might sound like a little cheesy or cliche, but I very much felt like becoming a therapist was a calling for me. I think before I even knew what psychology or therapy was, I just always kind of had a natural inclination to connecting with people. Um, I always was a listening ear and confidant for, friends, family. And I think once I kindly had the language for what therapy was as a career, I like knew almost in my soul that it was what was for me. So a little bit cliche there, but that's the honest truth. And I think linked with some personal life experiences, grief and chronic illness and things of that nature, I think it just had a personal passion and investment in getting into this career and helping those who have had maybe similar life experiences as myself.
I think many of us end up in this field because friends and family end up confiding in us, you know,
Hmm.
almost define what the future needs to be for us. The
Yes.
article that you replied to is about dealing with anxiety. You mentioned that anxiety plays an important role. What role do you see it playing in your life?
Yeah, I think when I had answered that question for the article, I was sharing a little bit about how anxiety was very present in my life, especially during graduate training. And even before then, I was a very studious student. And I'd put a lot of like personal pressures on myself. And I would probably have described myself as a little bit of like a anxious critter and an anxious soul, if you will. Um, and I think a lot of people see anxiety as like a negative emotion, right? Like, I don't want to feel anxiety. I don't want to feel sad, right? They lump it into this negative emotion when really, like any emotion on the emotion wheel, anxiety plays a role. I think it's to let us know that something's up, right? Like, we're nervous about something, we're excited about something, something is going on to make us feel this way. And instead of like pushing it aside or putting some type of band-aid over it or ignoring it or repressing it, can we kind of make room for it and better understand, how is this anxiety serving us? What is it trying to tell us about what it is that's going on in our current situation?
Great answer. Has there been any time in your life when you felt particularly overwhelmed by anxiety?
I think probably in graduate school, even a little bit in undergraduate school as well. I think, as I mentioned, the pressure that I was placing on myself to perform, at a higher level, getting more advanced certifications and, really pushing myself to know all that I can, which you really can't. In therapy and psychology, I think it came a little bit from like a perfectionistic lens. I wanted to be the best version of myself. I wanted to be the best therapist that I could be and, serve my clients and, my larger community. That I was just getting really overwhelmed by my anxiety, so much to the point that it was like debilitating and having the opposite effect. Instead of being able to be present with my clients, I was just so consumed with like anxiousness about like, okay, am I doing everything that I can for this person? Am I actually helping them? I would lump it into like the mindset of like a little bit of imposter syndrome, which I think we all go through across different fields, just because we care so much. And so, yes, that was definitely a time in my life where I felt pretty darn anxious a lot of the time.
It's such an uncomfortable feeling, and the temptation is to just do whatever we can to make the feeling go away. And yet you're saying to look underneath, like what purpose is this serving?
Mhm.
You mentioned being very boundaried with your time. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, again, like having started in graduate school where your time was so consumed.
Yeah.
You had classwork and then all of this homework and dissertation and writing and test preparation afterwards, and then fitting in, the clinical time as well. You're to get like a number of hours each week at a clinical placement. A lot of us also trying to have part-time jobs, many of us having, long-term relationships and families. So much of our time was getting consumed by this career and this larger goal of, attaining this degree. And I think that entered into my work field as well. Once I did graduate and attain that degree in licensure, I was still working all of the time. And again, a lot of it was because I cared, right? If another person reached out and was needing support and help, you never wanted to turn someone away. And sometimes this meant like working into late hours, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, working into the weekends. And I think it was just becoming too much. And again, I think all of us as therapists try to teach this to our clients all the time and to be boundaried, right? And that looks different for everyone. For me, it meant to be boundaried with my time, right? When am I my best version of myself? When do I provide the best therapy? It's certainly not 9 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
right? And so just learning a little bit about what works for me as a therapist so that I could do the best work while also taking care of myself and my family. So yes, I've learned to be a little bit more boundaried with my time and when I offer my therapy services.
You almost have to treat yourself as one of your clients.
Yes, and it is so hard to practice what we preach. We're not
Yeah.
very good.
Yes. What are, excuse me, what are a few of your tried and true strategies for reducing anxiety?
hmm I think, like I had mentioned earlier, trying to understand what my anxiety is telling me. That's something that I really try to practice on the regular, really with any kind of emotion, right? If I'm feeling some kind of way, like taking a minute, taking a step back and asking myself, what might be influencing my current state and allowing myself to feel whatever it is that I'm feeling instead of just ignoring it or telling myself that I shouldn't be feeling that way or that it's wrong to be feeling this way. Like, no, all emotions are valid and you're allowed to be feeling any of those, whether you think that, it's warranted or not. And so making space for it and checking in with myself and then allowing myself to just naturally feel it, I think are some of the things that I practice. And that I find that when I actually give myself the space and time to feel these things, maybe they lessen on their own because I'm not shunning them away. I'm just allowing myself to naturally go through the process of feeling these things and
Yeah.
then kind of just drift away. Obviously they come back again, but they will eventually drift away again.
So in the moment, it's like they give up when you actually pay attention and let yourself feel the feel.
Mhm.
I was so interested to hear that you volunteer for animal organizations. What
Mhm.
role have animals had in your own mental health?
Such a good question and a huge part of my life. I would say I love animals just as much, if not a smidge more than I do people. I think they are just such wonderful creatures. And I think animals can provide such important role for people struggling with mental health, and even for those who feel a little bit more grounded in their own mental health. Animals are just wonderful. For creatures that don't have much to say, I think they communicate in so many other ways. And I think they really do act as kind of silent supports in your life, whether you even realize it or not. And so I am a volunteer foster. I've fostered quite a few dogs in a couple of organizations in a couple of different states that I've been in over the years. And it's definitely hard, but it's wonderful to see, an animal that maybe had like an abuse history or was dumped somewhere then kind of like transform into this happy, wonderful critter. and getting them to a place where they can be in a loving home and providing, this mutual support, right? Us taking care of animals and then in return, them providing us such unconditional positive regard and love. So yeah, animals have been everything to me for as long as I can remember. Again, similar to how like psychology found me, like I'm just so connected to the animal world.
I find that the pets I've had have always given me more than they took from me.
Mhm. Mhm.
For our viewers today, I highly recommend you read Dr. Shaw's article in Authority magazine titled Five Effective Strategies for Mental Well-Being. You can get in touch with Dr. Cynthia Shaw at her website, authenticallylivingpsych.com, as well as Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thank you so much for being a person committed to helping others, and thank you for joining me here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Nancy. It was so wonderful. I appreciate your time.
Oh, you're so welcome, my privilege, and I hope you have enjoyed the rest of your day.
You as well. And happy Halloween.
Yes, okay. I